It would be important to put a formal agreement in place with your partner if there's likely to be a very significant change in your circumstances. For example, if you're living together and you buy a house and one of you puts in a much larger amount of money to the purchase, then you should have an agreement in place in order to protect that investment. If the relationship breaks down, you might find it much more difficult to recover your larger investment if there's no formal agreement in place. If you don't have an agreement in place and your relationship breaks down, then your joint assets will be dealt with in accordance with the ordinary rules of property law. That means that even if you've put in a large sum of money to buying a house, you may only be entitled to half the value at the end of the relationship. Unless you put in place a formal agreement between you at the outset, which sets out what you expect to happen if things go wrong, then you may find that you end up in court arguing about who's put in what and who's paid for what during the relationship. That's entirely avoidable if you think about these things in advance. It's not only people with a lot of money or property who should be thinking about putting an agreement, a formal agreement in place. Wherever there's a large imbalance in property at the outset, for example, one party may have built up savings or property from an earlier marriage, they may need to ring-fence that for the benefit of their children, for example, in case the worst happens and the relationship breaks down. It's very straightforward to put a formal agreement in place between partners. A solicitor would sit down with one of you and talk through your situation and your personal circumstances. And then the solicitor would explain to you what the default law says about your situation, so that you can decide whether an agreement's really necessary, and if so, what should it say. The solicitor will then draft your agreement and talk it over with you and make sure that you're happy with it. And once you are, they'll send it to your partner's solicitor to review for their interests. A solicitor can't act for both of you because there's a built-in conflict of interests if you should end up separating further down the line. If you'd like advice about putting in place a formal agreement between you and your partner, then please get in touch with us to discuss that. You can find our contact details on our website at www.paganosborne.com.